Everyone, happy Wednesday here for our midweek recap. Hope your week has been going well and you've been enjoying this beautiful snow. It's been awesome seeing all the snow flying this morning, where those super heavy chunks of snow falling down. And I just think it's beautiful. I love it. Now that we have second winter, we had fake spring, now we have second winter, and then eventually, hopefully, real spring will show up probably for about 10 minutes, and then summer will be here and it'll be 90 degrees. So I'm still happy for the cooler weather and enjoying that myself. But let's dive into our recap real quick here, and then we'll talk a little bit about what to expect for Palm Sunday and Easter, which is just around the corner. So this past Sunday, we talked about, we got into chapter 2 of James, and in that talked a lot about the sin of partiality and how, sorry, still getting over some of this stuff, but how we are not to treat people differently based on really anything. We are to treat people based on the love of Jesus and to love them with his unconditional love, which doesn't matter. Your bank account doesn't matter. The way you're dressed doesn't matter. And a lot of the other things that we can sometimes focus on do not matter. And so it was, it's always interesting for me, someone coming from the outside who didn't grow, I didn't grow up in church, but I did come to know Jesus in a church that did focus a lot on what you wore and did focus a lot on the exterior. And, it kind of amazes me. We read chapter 2 of James, and it says, you shouldn't be worried about what people are wearing. And then what did church do for a long time was we worried a lot about what people were wearing. And we got upset about those kind of things and treated people differently, if they came to church with a hat on, or they didn't come dressed the way that we thought they should be dressed, in a way that, spoke to the values we personally had from our generation. And so it's, I think, a good encouragement to look at this portion of James here that talks about partiality, to think about not if we're showing partiality, but how we're showing partiality in the way that we interact with people on a Sunday morning. Do we give more deference to people who are in obvious need? Again, I'm speaking more specifically for our congregation here in Du Bois, for our church family here, knowing what I think most of us struggle with is it's much easier to deal with the people who are in obvious need. It's much easier to address the needs which are very clear and very apparent, and we can tend to flock toward those people. I think we have a lot of big hearts in our church family. And so when someone comes in and they're in obvious need, our people are really good at that. We jump on those problems and issues. We like to take care of it. Our people give sacrificially for that. It is awesome to see, but it's not as awesome if we are treating those people differently. If we are not loving those who are not in obvious need, but who are in need, because every person is in desperate need of Jesus, not just of what Jesus can give them or what the church can do financially or in a crisis situation, but everyone needs Jesus. And so are we surrounding those who are not in obvious need? And are we looking for ways to minister, looking for ways to love them with the love of Jesus, even if they're not in a place of need, at least as far as from what we can see or from what is obvious? Do we love those people the same? Do we surround them just the same? Do we interact with them the same? I really think that that's at the heart of what James is saying here. I think for sure what James is saying is don't treat people poorly. Don't disrespect people based on their income level or what they have. And again, I would say as a church family, I don't think we struggle with that. I think we do pretty well, pretty good on that. I think it helps knowing that a lot of us are not, white collar workers who are used to the fine luxuries of life. And so when someone's down and out, most of us can relate with that. We resonate with that place of financial struggle. Most of us have that in our past or maybe in our present. And so just being honest, like we it's easier to love those people sometimes because we can relate with that. We resonate with that. When we're encountering people we don't necessarily have a lot in common as far as social status can go, that can make it a little harder to interact with, to love, to come alongside of. And so I think we do have to weigh that out. I think, one of the things that God made very clear to me as I prepared that sermon was loving our neighbors as ourselves means loving every neighbor as ourselves. When we're honest, I think each of us probably has a people group or a situation that we struggle with. We struggle to love people in that place. I told you Sunday, one of mine is when I encounter someone who is drunk, who's inebriated. I really struggle to love in that place. I grew up with that dysfunction in my house, which often turned violent. And that brings a lot of that stuff back up. And so I really need to lean into Jesus in those moments and ask him to help me love people more than I have the capacity to. And so uh, I would guess I'm not a betting person, but I'm going to bet that we all have those things in our life that we can struggle to communicate and be loving in that moment. And I would say that that's maybe where God is going to hopefully teach you and grow you in that place of partiality, that you would be able to love anybody and everybody with the love of Jesus, which is unconditional. Our love is conditional, his is not. And so when we love with his love, we don't have to take situations into context. We don't, our past baggage doesn't come into play when it's his love. And that would be the hope, that we would display the fruit of the Spirit, not the worked on fruit of myself, but the fruit of the Spirit, which is always awesome. And it's not flawed like ours will always be. So that's my recap. That's what I have us to, that's what I wanted us to really think about. And hopefully you've been processing that since Sunday, how you are guilty of partiality and what God wants you to do with that. And I pray that God will take you on that journey and he will grow you in that area. These next 2 weeks, we're going to be in the same portion of James, the second half of chapter 2. Starting in verse 14, we're going to be going through faith without works. And we're going to look at that this week in reference to the events of Palm Sunday. And then we're going to look at the same passage in light of the events of the resurrection, Jesus' death on the cross and his resurrection. And I think God has some awesome stuff for us in both of those events, and looking at it through the lens of James chapter 2, I think will be really cool. I know it's been fun for me as I've been preparing and praying through this and looking at the content myself. I'm excited for what God is bringing to light, and so I hope you are too. But that's the next 2 weeks. I would encourage you, take the time, think through, pray through, ask God to bring people to mind that he could have, that you could invite, whether that's to the Tenebrae service next Friday, or whether that's to church service on Palm Sunday or Easter. I would encourage you to be thinking that way, thinking that direction, and asking how you might be able to invite somebody to what God has for us during this Easter season. So as far as the calendar is concerned, I did just mention Tenebrae, which is next Friday, 7 p.m. at the church. And we also have the Red Cross blood drive that same day, which is an appointment-only blood drive. So if you'd be interested in giving blood on that day, I want you to be aware of that taking place. And I think the calendar looks pretty normal other than that. Can't believe it's going to be Easter already in less than 2 weeks. That's kind of crazy to me. And yeah. So I know we got the IF conference coming up for you ladies on the 5th and 6th. So I hope if you're able to join that you'll think and pray about doing that. But thank you for many of you that were praying for me. I am feeling much, much better. Feeling like myself again. Still have a little stuffiness, as you can tell, but that's of no consequence because I'm feeling better. My brain's working, and that's what's most important to me. I'm able to get my work done and really focus on what I want to focus on. So God bless you all. Hope you have a great week. Hope to see you Sunday, 10:30 a.m. If we can't see you in person, you can always catch us here online. But God bless you all and have